Welcome to our annual Gifted and Talented Celebrate GATE Night. We are so thrilled that you have allowed yourself to be fully present here tonight. We know that life is so busy, especially as a family, and we are grateful that you made the choice to be here tonight, so thank you. I'm Shyla Christensen, the Gifted and Talented Coordinator for the district, and our gifted team is kind of spread all over, but we have Stephen Carter in the back, and Trisha Conti, Greg Smith, and Nikki Laughlin were all of the teachers that were standing out there getting all the kids registered. I also want to give special notice down here to Patty Vale. She's our representative from the Colorado Department of Education tonight. She's our regional consultant, and she's a big help in getting all of this ready tonight. We also want to welcome our friends from the BOCES as we are live streaming this so that people in rural communities can also take part and hear what our presenter has to say. If you notice this poster over here, it says LARA. It's the Lower Arkansas River Affiliate for the Colorado Gifted and Talented Education. It's big. But it's our affiliate program here in South Central region, and they are sponsoring the event tonight by providing some yummy treats afterwards. So that's really nice to have. And my last big shout out is to Canon City High School for letting us use their facilities. We're so appreciative. So as we gather here to explore the world of artificial intelligence, I want to begin with a simple analogy that might help frame this exciting journey we're about to take together. Imagine you're standing at the edge of a vast, unexplored forest. One that's filled with trees, paths, and hidden wonders. The forest represents the world of AI, and while it might seem overwhelming at first, just like a forest, it's filled with possibility. Now think of our children as the adventurous explorers, each with a compass in hand and the ability to carve their own path through it. As parents, you are the loving guides, offering them wisdom, encouragement, and support as they navigate this new territory. You've already gifted them with the tools for success. You've given them curiosity, resilience, and also a desire to make the world a better place. My role as the gifted coordinator is to ensure that together we equipped our children with the knowledge and understanding they need, not only to navigate the forest, but to thrive in it. Gifted education has long championed being active in creating productivity and critical thinking. But what happens when our devices begin to think and create on their own? Rather than shying away from AI, let's examine how to boldly embrace its power and potential to leverage new possibilities and pathways with ethical decision-making, collaboration, design, and knowledge construction. AI is a tool, like a compass in that forest. It's not something to be afraid of, or something that will replace human connection or connectivity or creativity. Instead, it's a powerful aid, when understood, helps us find our way to new discoveries and innovative solutions. Tonight, we'll explore how AI can shape your child's future, not as something mysterious or distant, but as something that can be harnessed for growth, learning, and creativity. And I hope that you're as excited as I am to go on this journey. Tonight, we are thrilled to be able to bring a nationally recognized gifted educator, author, and speaker, Dr. Brian Housand, to Canon City. Dr. Housand is a coordinator for the academically or intellectually gifted program at the University of North Carolina in Wilmington. He's also the creator of Gifted 360. Dr. Housand earned a PhD in educational psychology at the University of Connecticut with an emphasis in both gifted education and instructional technology. Brian has worked in education as a classroom teacher, a gifted teacher, and a university professor for over 25 years. As a speaker and consultant, he has presented in 40 states, Canada, Australia, South Korea, Kuwait, and Chile. Brian is a lover of technology, Star Wars, all things Disney, and video games. Please give a warm Canon City welcome to Dr. Brian Housand.
Lovely. Hi, everybody. Hi. These lights are really bright, so I can barely see you out there. I'm going to move around a lot. I'm going to ask you a whole lot of questions. This is my favorite slide. So can you see this? Okay, good. I heard a lot of yeses out there. Can you not see this? Okay, we can see that. We're going to move on. So, hi, my name is Brian. As she was saying, I live in Wilmington, North Carolina. I'm going to show you a whole bunch of stuff. I'm not going to share my slides. We are live streaming. I don't know where that's going to end up. So I think that recording will be around for a while. I'm going to stick around afterwards, answer any questions that you have. We're going to have a lot of interaction back and forth. So we're just going to make this next hour or so as fun as possible. I'm really kind of in the beginning of the 2025 first quarter of Brian's tour. This is my first actual trip outside of my office in Wilmington, North Carolina. Done a lot of virtual stuff in the month of January. Next week I'll be in Kentucky. After that I'm going to Florida for a couple of days. Then I'll be in Charlotte. I'm going to be keynoting the Gifted Conference in Georgia. And then the North Carolina Gifted Conference. I think I have like 6 other states after that, like within the next 6 months. So I think I have 12 on the books right now. A lot of people really just, at this point in time, really want to talk about AI, and specifically how we're going to use this and really respond to it in a positive and meaningful way for our gifted learners. The thing that's really kind of overwhelming to me is just how young it is. If we think about the birth of ChatGPT, or specifically ChatGPT 3, when it was released out into the world, that happened on November 30th, 2022. That also happens to be my wife's birthday, so I was like, happy birthday, Angela. You're not gonna see me for the next couple of years because I'm just gonna play with ChatGPT all of the time. It's 2 years, 2 months, and 5 days since pretty much life as we knew it completely changed. That's really fast for a and respond to a technology like this. Now, as I've been talking with educators across the country and really looking at ways that we can use this responsibly, I've been really insistent upon this particular message. When it comes to AI, I don't have any answers. As a matter of fact, I don't think that anybody has any of the answers. And if you were ever in a room like this and somebody came onto a stage with a microphone and said, I have all of the answers for AI, you should probably just get up and walk out of the room. I don't think you should trust them. But instead, I have some ideas about some ways that I think that we can positively respond to this incredibly powerful tool. As a lover of technology, I always like to look where technology came from, particularly things that we're talking about in today's time. This is science fiction author and futurist Arthur C. Clarke. Clarke wrote that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Now, if you're familiar with Arthur C. Clarke and his work, you probably know him as the author of the novel and then the screenplay 2001. That was a film directed by Stanley Kubrick. It was released in the year 1968. It was trying to predict what life was going to be like in the year 2001. In this film, we've got lots of different types of computers. There's even like an early prototype of what an iPad might look like. And of course, we all know, or most of us know, the story of the most famous computer that's in that film. That is the HAL 9000 computer. Now, I'm going to have a lot of spoilers here for you if you haven't seen the film. This computer malfunctions and things go horribly wrong in the worst way possible. As we think about this, we see this early computer as almost sort of this villain that's like out to get us in some way, because it's wanting to protect us, yet at the same time, it also seems like it's going to eventually destroy us, which is just a really weird way to think about what our technology is going to do. Now, as I was beginning to kind of think about, well, how is AI, our computers and technology, how are they typically displayed in films? And so I started kind of going through the Internet Movie Database and looking at all of the different film representations of computers, robots, and artificial intelligence. These are some of kind of the more perhaps well-known of them. You probably have seen a few of these, if not all of them. And the one thing that I noticed about this collection of films is that nearly every single one of them shows the computer being the bad guy. Almost every portrayal, artificial intelligence is something that is out to get us. I mean, with the possible exception of a film like Big Hero 6, or Ron's Gone Wrong, or probably WALL-E. Those are much more positive, I think, in nature. Now, it was mentioned in my introduction that I'm a big lover of Star Wars, and I think that we have another really positive portrayal of what artificial intelligence can look like. And that's through the portrayal of R2-D2 and C-3PO. This, I think, just represents like the best possible case scenario of what artificial intelligence could look like. Like, we've got these droids, they're helpers. I mean, C-3PO, he's brilliant. He's a protocol droid. He's there to make our life easier. I also try to think of things through this lens of what is giftedness. And I think that really R2-D2 and C-3PO represent sort of like the two sort of spectrums, or two ends of the spectrum, of what Joe Renzulli referred to as giftedness. On one hand, we have C-3PO. He's like your classic schoolhouse gifted kid. He's answering all of the right questions, is fluent in more than 6 million forms of communication, highly logical, always knows the answer. A little bit of a worrier, kind of stressed out from time to time. And then you've got R2-D2. He's like the other type of giftedness. He's this creative, productive giftedness. He's solving problems all the time. Like, you aren't exactly sure how he qualified for the gifted program, but he's there. He's doing things. You aren't exactly sure where that creativity is going to take it, but he's always there to save the day. One of my favorite things that I ever read about R2-D2 is that they said that he was the most vulgar movie character of all time, because they bleeped out every single word that he ever said. We also see science fiction movies portraying things like the Terminator films, where we learned that on August 29th, 1997 that Judgment Day would happen, that Skynet would actualize, and that would be the end of life as we know it. Now, back in the year 1997, we didn't have Skynet, but we are past that year 1997. Back in the year 1997, we did have an artificial intelligence tool that was living on our computers and trying to help us in the best way possible. And that, of course, was this guy. It was Clippy. I'm glad that you laughed. I have a love-hate relationship with Clippy. I understand he's there to help. Like, he wants to make my life easier. It's like, oh, hey, it looks like you're writing a letter. Oh, would you like me to help with that? No, Clippy. No, I do not want you to help me. Please just move out of the way. But today's AI tools, I think, take that sort of helpfulness and they just level it up on that. So with this in mind, let's jump into what is going to be our first activity. We're going to play a little game here.
Shall we play a game?
Oh,
I think I missed them.
yeah, weird, isn't it? Love to. How about global thermonuclear war?
No, Matthew Broderick, we should not play global thermonuclear war. We want to play a nice game of chess. That is such a better use of our time. We're not going to do either one of those things. Instead, we're going to play a game that I'm going to call You versus the Robot. Now, what we're going to do is a little brainstorming activity. So if you have with you something to write with and something to write on, you just need something to kind of make a list with. You can use your phone for this. You can use a piece of paper if you have that. You can use your brain. What we're going to do is I'm going to show you an object, and the way that this game is going to work looks like this. This is a test of creativity. Please list as many and varied uses as you can for the following object. Now, if you were with me today, which I worked with elementary, middle school, high school students, you already kind of know how this game's going to work. Have a little bit of advantage because we already talked about the FFOE. You just need to use that tool. So let's think about this. I'm going to show you an object. You're going to have 60 seconds. I want you listing out as many different things that you think this object could be used for. So we're looking for many and varied. At the end of the 60 seconds, we'll see how you did. So this is our object. Got 30 more seconds. Ten more seconds. 3, 2, 1, and stop. All right, why don't you go ahead and count up your list and then share some of your uses for a break that you had with the people that are sitting next to you. You might even share which one you think is your best or most creative use for a break. 38 seconds go.
What's your best?
Okay, you more. Okay, that's more. Like your
My best is mortar pestle.
What about motorcycle?
Great. We're going to come back at 3, 2, and 1. I'm just going to kind of do a show of hands, like how many items you came up with on your list. So we're gonna start with like 5 or more. So if you got 5 or more, raise your hand. If you got 6 or more, keep your hand up. 7 or more, 8 or more, you put your hand in when I get your number. 9 or more, 10 or more, 11 or more, 12 or more. We stopped. We have 12. Tell me how many have 13. Anybody else? How many? 14 in the back. 12 is impressive. I mean, that is literally 1 every 5 seconds. We can't really write much faster than that. Do we have more over here? How many? 13. Okay, 13 is just truly outstanding. Let's talk about some of your uses for a brick. I'm going to ask this question. I've done this brick activity in a lot of places. I work with a lot of different groups of teachers. It's usually teachers. Please raise your hand if one of your uses of a brick was as a weapon. Always with the bricks and weapons. Like, please don't do that. Like, let's come up with something else. We're looking for mini and varied. So what's another kind of category our usage of a brick that's not a weapon? Yeah. Okay, we could use it as a building material. What else? Okay, so we're going to use it. It's the brick that's part of the house that dropped on the witch and the Wizard of Oz. Yep. Okay, it could be for building a path. What else? Yes? Making something what? Oh, weighing something down. Sure, what else? A paperweight. Let's go over here. Blue shirt. Sure, it's like totally an exercise tool. Yep. Get rid of stress. It's like a stress reliever. All the way in the back row. Yep.
My dad came up with this one. He came up with delivering a message, like in case
I say dangerously close to weapon, but I'm not judging. Yep. It could be a wall for an ant. So we could go on kind of with that. If we were to collect sort of our responses, we would see like a lot of kind of variety as a part of that. So I was working with the groups today, we talked about this kind of framework of creativity as ways that we can begin to assess or measure creativity. This was originally created by J.P. Guilford back in '56, I think was the original year when he put this together. People refer to it as the FFOE. It's been used by pretty much everyone in the field of creativity since the 50s because I think that it works really well. We have fluency. That's the number of items that you came up with. We had 11, 12, 13 as our top contenders with that. We could also look at flexibility. How varied are your categories? If all 12 of your items were weapons, that's not very flexible in my thinking. So we want to look for a lot of different categories as a part of that. We could look at the originality. What's something that you came up with that nobody else came up with? And then how elaborate or detailed were a part of those things. We're going to compare some of your results to the machine. So I'm going to go over to ChatGPT. I'm going to give it the same prompt. I'm just going to say list 25, because that's twice as good. 25 varied uses for a brick. Now let's make this a little bit larger so you might actually be able to see it. Right, so we've got some practical uses like doorstop, bookend, paperweight, knife sharpener, DIY, hot plate, plant riser, tool organizer, weight for exercise, barbecue, grill support, fire pit boundary. We've got creative uses, miniature sculpture base, chalk, board, brick, garden marker, tic-tac-toe board, hidden key holder, photography prop, decorative centerpieces, puzzle challenge, a DIY, phone stand, a candle holder, survival and outdoor uses, emergency hammer, fishing line anchor, a pest barrier, a cooling block, and a buried time capsule. Give me 25, oh, not that many, 25 more. So we've got bed riser, toilet tank saver, rustic soap dish, heated foot warmer, towel or napkin weight, shoe deodorizer, stair step trainer, book press, umbrella stand weight, window security, a bird bath, a slug barrier, a compost aerator, a moss art canvas, raised garden bed support, tree root protector, stepping stones, ledge on lawn edging, greenhouse, heat retainer, DIY bird feeder stand. Just for fun and creative, it could be a giant domino set, brick Jenga, which sounds really dangerous, mini Zen garden, personalized nameplate, and a science experiment base. That's 50 ideas so far. Do you want a theme set next? Sure, ChatGPT, let's theme that. So we can say, what are we thinking? And so we can start to kind of play around with this even more. We can give it some different perspectives. So we're just kind of generally asking for uses of a brick. Let's ask it this. I am a 10-year-old gifted student. What uses might I come up with? So by changing the parameters on that, oh, this is going to be fun. We're going to give feedback on a new version of ChatGPT. So we got a couple of choices here. On the left-hand side, we've got fun and creative, like a leprechaun trap base. That sounds awesome. Or a pet rock hotel. On the right, we've got creative and artistic uses, learning exploration uses, DIY fort wall, STEM and learning uses, games and challenges. So we just kind of like doubled our output there, and we can decide which one we like better. Just as we're scrolling through here, what do you guys prefer? How many are preferring, just based upon that quick glance at that, how many people are preferring response number 1? Show of hands. And response number 2. And I felt like number 2, so we're going to prefer that response. It's going to just add that to our collection. We can also change the perspective even more. I am the parent of a gifted student. I need a list that I might come up with. So here we're going to approach this with a mix of practicality, creativity, educational enrichment. Maybe you got some practical household uses, educational learning uses, creativity and DIY projects, outdoor and nature-based uses. Again, we're looking at different responses in a different set based upon the perspective that we're asking it to use. I am a brick mason. So again, as we change that perspective, as we change our role, the responses are going to change. I think the first time that you see something like this, it feels kind of magical. But is it any good? Like, as you were looking at those responses and comparing them to your own, were the responses of ChatGPT any good? What do you think? They seem pretty good. They were adequate. They were so-so. Compared to what we created as a large group, they were probably equal, if not necessarily slightly better, depending on what our criteria are. If we're thinking of this as a classic kind of measure of creativity, then we could measure ChatGPT's creativity versus real-life humans. And the way that we could do that is exactly what researchers at the University of Montana did. They used the Torrance test of creative thinking, which has very similar activities to brainstorming multiple uses for a brick. And they gave the Torrance test to real-life college undergraduates, because that's what educational researchers do. It's kind of a captive audience. You have to give them surveys. You're conducting research. They gave this group of undergrads a Torrance test. They also gave the same Torrance test to ChatGPT. And then they have submitted the results for official scoring. How do you think ChatGPT did on fluency, flexibility, and originality. ChatGPT scored in the 99th percentile. That's top. When it came to flexibility, how many different ways or different categories, it only scored in the 97th percentile. Only the 97th. And for originality, it scored in the 99th percentile, meaning that the responses that this computer came up with, compared to other results that real-life people had put together, was more original, more flexible, and able to produce more ideas in the same amount of time. That's both exciting and frightening at exactly the same time. If we think about that AI is that creative, using one of our major tests of creativity, what's going to be next? I think one of the things that we really have to think about when it comes to that question is it any good, is what types of questions are we asking? If we're asking better, or we're crafting better prompts and asking better questions, then our results are going to be that much better. So it's really about asking a good question, which is something hopefully that we've been teaching our students how to do all along. That they need to be clear and specific. We want them to be open-ended and not closed-ended. We have to have a purpose. They need to be relevant. They need to be neutral and non-leading, and they also need to be engaging. I also asked ChatGPT to give me a list of characteristics of how to craft a good AI prompt. It says similar, but slightly different things. We're still going to be clear, but we really want to encourage creativity when we're asking those questions. We got to have a purpose behind what it is that we're doing. We want it to be concise but informative, and we also need to be audience appropriate, knowing who it is that we're creating this for. All about getting a good response from AI is about learning the art and craft of asking better questions. For as long as I can remember, I've been a huge fan of Mad Libs. I just love them so much because they're so humorous, and you can make such like awkward, like just really strange kind of creations by choosing different random parts of speech. I think to create a good AI prompt, you kind of are playing like basically a game of Mad Libs. You have this kind of structure in place where you're saying things like, this is like a good teacher example, like, I'm a 5th grade gifted teacher. My students are, and you can kind of explain who your students are, the things that they're interested in, and the things that they like to do. You can take an existing project or lesson or unit of study, and you could fill in those blanks, and AI would be able to improve that or personalize that for you. Google has a ton of resources for educators that I share pretty frequently. If you have like this 2-hour online course, I'm going to save you an hour and 58 minutes of your life by just giving you this link because this is where all the good stuff is. That bit.ly link that's up there at the top, it has all of the recipes or the Mad Lib versions of how you can create lesson plans from scratch. It has ideas for taking tasks and assigning different mastery levels to them. This is also exactly the same thing that a product like Magic School AI does really, really well. So this is something I think that most educators probably know about at this point, and it's a great way to really customize and differentiate instruction for your gifted learners. The other thing that I think that we have to do is really to learn how to ask those better questions. As was mentioned, I live in North Carolina right now, and back at the beginning of last year, 2024 in January, our State Department of Public Instruction released this report on guidelines and recommendations and considerations for what was happening in the public schools. They listed it out PK through 13. And one of the best things that is a part of this particular document that I want to share with you here is this craft framework that was developed by Vera Carbero, because it uses that approach of asking better questions to get you better results. I was working on exactly the same thing. I was happy that somebody else did that work for me and that I could share the work that they created, because it's probably better than something I was going to be able to come up with on my own. Craft, each letter stands for something, and the first letter in this stands for the context. Here we're adding specific details to help the AI target your specific needs. The more specific that you are, the better those results are going to be. When you're very general or aren't asking a good question, then it's going to be confused. It doesn't know what it is that you're asking for. The R is the role. You can assign AI a role for a more targeted response. For example, we said, oh, we're a 10-year-old gifted kid. Oh, we're a teacher of the gifted. Oh, we are the parent of a gifted child. Oh, we are a brick mason. We saw that each of those roles changed the responses. We can also talk about the audience. Who is this information for? Are you wanting to share this information with someone else? Or are you really kind of focusing on this for just your personal use? We can also specify the format. How long do you want it to be? In the example that I was using, I said I wanted a list of 25 items. I could have said 50, I could have said 100. It's depending on what it is that you might need for that particular question that you're asking. Do you need it in the form of a Shakespearean sonnet? Do you need it in the form of a screenplay? Maybe you just want to make like a really top 40 pop song with that same information. It would do all of that. Also, if you give it an example and say, here's something that I would like for it to look like or sound like, it will also do that. The T in craft stands for the task and tone. What do you want the AI to do for you? But the part of that that I like even better is, what voice do you want it to have? You can say, I need it to be really positive and upbeat or friendly. Or I want this in a very business-like tone. Or I want it to sound like a 13-year-old is talking to other 13-year-olds about this. Or I really like pirates a lot. Can you just have the response come out in pirate speak? And it will do all of that for you. Sometimes with comedic results. So as we look at this, context, role, audience, format, task, and tone, then we can begin to ask better questions of the AI. But what does that look like? So this might be an example of what you were looking for. You could say, you're the parent of a highly curious gifted learner who wants to write a letter to the media in support of gifted programs in Canon City, Colorado. This letter should be about 150 words and be friendly, upbeat, and optimistic. Now, if we look at the craft recipe that's there, then this is where each of those pieces come into play. The role in our prompt is that you are the parent of a highly curious gifted learner. The context is that we're writing a letter in support of gifted programs. Our audience would be the school board or the media. The letter should be about 150 words, which is our format, and our task and tone is friendly, upbeat, and optimistic. So let's try that out to see what that looks like. I'm going to take that prompt from here. I'm going to open up a new ChatGPT window, and I'm going to paste that right in. So here we can see that it's crafting the beginnings of a letter. As a parent of a highly curious and talented student in Canon City, I see firsthand the power of gifted education. The second paragraph, gifted education, isn't about privileges, it's about meeting kids where they are and helping them grow. Without appropriate support, gifted students can become disengaged, underachieve, and even struggle emotionally. But with the right opportunities, like advanced coursework, problem-solving challenges, and creative projects, they flourish. Goes on to kind of close out and bring it back to Canon City, talking about this, like more about your community. And I think that it's really kind of a good beginning as a part of that. You can take that, you can customize it even more. You could say, I really like to use emojis in my writing. I want to make it maybe seem a little less optimistic and more kind of warning about sort of the dangers of what might happen if gifted programming isn't served. You can tweak that completely. But is it cheating? If you have AI, ChatGPT, Gemini, and any of the other tools that are out there do the work for you, is it cheating? I think it depends. Depends on what your purpose is. If you're using that as a starting place or a place to get some inspiration from, I'm not going to say no. But generally, as an educator, I say that pretty much anytime that you go to a digital online resource and you hit copy, paste, and then submit it as your own work without saying where that came from, then it is probably going to be cheating. I see this time and time again. I teach at the University of North Carolina, Wilmington. I also teach a couple of courses at Rutgers University about gifted education. And I'm seeing this more and more, especially with undergrad students. They are just asking ChatGPT, they're taking prompts, discussion questions, they're pasting them directly into ChatGPT and then submitting that as their own work. I spend a lot of time in AI, and it is really obvious, like really obvious, when AI has generated something. I already know what it's going to look like. I know the responses that are going to come back because I've already asked it all of the questions multiple times. We have to look for ways that we can begin to judge or have our students really judging with criteria and defending with evidence the information that's being created by artificial intelligence. They've got to have the background knowledge to know whether that information is correct or whether it's even any good. So what I've started doing, again, as an educator, is to just take every assignment that I give out and I submit it directly to all of the AI tools that I have access to. I want to look at what the responses are. I want to know what it's going to say. Oftentimes I've taken some of those really average responses and I've given that as the prompt instead. Like, this is what AI created. I want you to do better than that. And then justify why it's better. We have to move beyond thinking just about the end product and really focusing on the process. And in the age of AI, I think that we really have to ask for personal responses. How are you connecting to this information as a human being? Which leads to my third big but. But can I trust it? Do you trust me? Do you trust me? Not really. I mean, that's probably an appropriate response. Not really. Like, we just met today. Do you trust me? Like, it's such an interesting question. I feel like I've heard that somewhere. Do you trust me? I trust you. No, Rose, you are hallucinating. In this beautiful, like, romanticized scene, Jack says, like, do you trust me? I trust you. And then he's like making her hallucinate that she's like flying through this. I'm flying. No, you're hallucinating. But that's one of the big worries about AI, is that it's going to make something up, which, by the way, it does all the time. I was literally using it like 3 days ago to work on this conference proposal for the National Association for Gifted Conference, and I was saying, hey, I'm looking for some additional ways that I can provide some like research or background to support this point that I'm trying to say. You got some suggestions. It gave me like a handful of supposedly research articles that were actually real. Over half of them were completely fake. Authors' names, all real. Those titles do not exist, and if you go to those journals, those page numbers are not the same as what it was saying that was. But if I just accepted it, and I hit copy, paste, submit, then I would be the one who looked like a fool. We have to be careful with that. We have to check and verify and know that we're going to need to go that extra step. AI, just like Jack, has the potential to manipulate us. And sometimes even humans are going to fabricate information. Because what happens when somebody asks you a question that actually know the answer to, but they feel like that you should. I'm not going to actually ask you to answer that. I'm going to just say, you're probably doing one of these things. You sometimes, as humans, will speculate or conjecture or hypothesize. Sometimes you just like embellish. Like you got like a seed of truth out there, but you're just going to kind of spitball a little bit further to make it sound convincing. It happens all the time. It's kind of part of human nature. This quote comes from a book written by Alvin Toffler back in the year 1970. In 1970, Toffler was talking about what life was like going to be in the 21st century. In this book called Future Shock. And he said that the illiterate of the 21st century, which we're now 25 years into, will not be those who can't read or write, but those who can't learn, unlearn, and then relearn. We're constantly learning new information, and we have to figure out where that's going to fit sort of in our grand scheme of things. Toffler goes on to kind of define what future shock is that shattering stress and disorientation that we induce in individuals by subjecting them to too much change in too short of a time. We've had a lot of change within the past 5 years in particular. And if you're feeling stressed out, overwhelmed, confused, then we're probably experiencing something akin to future shock. As we think about that speculation, that sort of manipulation, or the hallucination, we find out that we hallucinate facts, or things that we think are facts, all of the time. We're going to play a little movie quote, fill in the blank. Blank, I am your father. Go ahead and tell somebody what you think goes in the blank. I am going to apologize in advance for anybody that has not seen this film, but it's been a while.
Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father. He told me not. He told me you. No. I am your father.
No, I am your father. That's the quote directly from the movie. If you said, Luke, I am your father, you have been hallucinating for quite some time. It's always been known. George Lucas didn't change it. It's always been known. Here's another one. If you build it, blank will come. Now you're totally doubting yourself at this point. You're like, oh, everything I thought was true is a lie. So this one you gotta listen to really carefully. It's a whisper from a cornfield. If you build it, he will come. It has never been they, it's he. It's an amazing movie, you should go and watch it again. It's been a while. He will come, because that's what the whole story is about. The closest that line, if you build it, they will come, comes in this particular scene where we see James Earl Jones deliver something close to it, but not a home run.
Oh, people will come, Ray. People will most definitely come.
Ray, people will come, Ray. People will most definitely come. That's the they, perhaps, that we were thinking of. Now, what I realized from those particular two movie clips is that when James Earl Jones, the voice of Darth Vader, speaks, people tend to hallucinate about any number of things. Now, that misremembering of quotes or facts and figures is referred to, like in psychology and sociology, as the Mandela effect. That's the phenomenon that occurred when Nelson Mandela was released from prison. People all around the world seem to remember that he died in prison. And they're like, wait, how is he being released from prison? Didn't he die like 20 years ago? Like, no, he's still alive. Or was it that particular moment in time? By the way, in case you're wondering, this is a mandala of mandalas. Now, one of the more, I think, interesting research studies that's come out about this whole idea of the Mandela effect, and this kind of opportunity of hallucination, was published back in 2021. What the researchers concluded in very academic speak is that there are certain images for which people consistently make the same false memory error despite the majority of visual experiences being the canonical image. That sounds very fancy. Let me show you what their research study actually was. They showed people pictures of Curious George, and they asked them, which is the correct depiction of Curious George? Is it A, B, or C? What do you think? Yeah, you guys are like, oh, like, well, I don't even know anymore. The correct answer is A. Curious George does not have a tail. Never had a tail. This is the mascot from the Monopoly board game, Rich Uncle Pennybags. Does Rich Uncle Pennybags, does he have a monocle? Does he wear glasses, or does he have no eyewear at all? I mean, he looks like a monocle wearer, but he does not wear glasses. He has 20/20 vision. This is Where's Waldo? Is Waldo usually seen just sort of walking or strolling about, minding his own business? Does Waldo carry a cane, or is Waldo usually depicted with an umbrella? Yeah, it is B. He usually is walking with a cane. They had a few others, like the Fruit of the Loom logo apparently has never been on a plate nor part of a cornucopia. Pikachu has always had a black spot down at the base of his tail, and C-3PO, yes, has always had a silver leg. It is literally right there. The findings indicated that people tend to be very confident in picking the wrong image. Very confident. I worked with gifted kids for a lot of years, and that kind of sums up a lot of things right there. Just saying. This idea of, do you trust me, comes up over and over again, as we saw in the film Aladdin.
We could get out of the palace, see the world.
Is it safe?
Sure, do you trust me?
What?
Do you trust me?
Yes.
There they go with the flag. Nelson Mandela once said that a bright future beckons. The onus is on us, through hard work, honesty, and integrity, to reach for the stars. I think that is one of the most important messages for us when it comes to AI. That the onus is on us. We have to be responsible with this incredibly powerful tool. We have to be very critical consumers of the information. We can't just pick the first avocado out of the bunch. We gotta go through all of them to make sure that one's going to be perfectly right when we make a really tasty guacamole. We can't, I think, sometimes carry things a little bit too far. We have to have a certain amount of trust, or else we'll never get anything done. This is not an AI-generated image. This was actually a real thing. It's called a digital calculus. So apparently, the story goes, back when calculators were first introduced, specifically in Japan, that people did not trust the digital calculator, and they therefore wanted a device that would allow them to check the calculations with the abacus that they were very used to. That seems to be a lot. Yes, we're going to use the abacus to check the calculations that the calculator was coming up with. The world is a weird place. I think maybe one of the best things that AI can be for us is a thought partner. I think that this is really a positive and beneficial potential use for gifted learners. gifted kids tend to ask a whole lot of questions. Sometimes, as teachers and as parents, we get tired of answering all of the questions that they have. But if they use AI as one of their thought partners, this is a resource that never gets tired of the questions that you're asking. It's always going to give you additional information. And I think that it can be a way that we can bounce ideas back and forth. I don't think our use of AI needs to be a one-way street. I think it needs to be a two-way street, maybe a little bit like a highway. Oftentimes, I will have an idea, and I will kind of work on that for a while. Other times, I'll go to AI and say, hey, what do you think about this? And then that's really the start of a conversation. I'll think of something, AI thinks of something. Or AI thinks of something, and then I'll respond to it. But it's having that back and forth of me, and then the robot, and then me, and then the robot, that really allows, I think, some interesting things to develop and occur from that. Now, we've talked a lot about ChatGPT, but ChatGPT is not the only AI in town. There's dozens of them out there. I would say that ChatGPT is kind of my favorite. It was the first one that I started using. It's the one that I still use the most. But Google has a lovely product that's called Gemini, and I think it does a lot of things that ChatGPT doesn't do. There are different responses. Microsoft also has a product out there called Copilot. I've used it. It's fine. That's as far as I'll go with that. But I think one of the things that we can do if we want to be more critical consumers is to compare the different tools that are out there. Instead of just using one, let's try using multiple versions of that and asking exactly the same question. So I was working on a different project and I was kind of working on some resources around thinking like a disciplinarian. Specifically, I wanted to have AI create this list of 5 things that would help me question like a scientist. So I asked each of those 3 tools, and this is kind of the summary of what it came up with. Now, as you're looking at this, we see, I've sort of tried to make it really pretty on the slides, but we can see that there's a lot of repetition in this. For example, each one of them recommended that we have or display some type of curiosity as a part of that. Gemini and ChatGPT also specifically list this idea of skepticism. We've got creativity listed from Gemini and Copilot, but not from ChatGPT. And then we've got this open-mindedness piece that's taking place. So we've got a lot of overlap between those 3 things. When we see that sort of triangulation of our data, then we can begin, I think, to get some better responses. And really maybe put a little bit more trust in those types of responses that have been produced. And then it occurred to me that I had heard this piece of advice somewhere else. That we should be curious and not judgmental, which is exactly a lesson that we learned from Ted Lasso. I guess the last kind of piece that I want to show you here is a little bit more about the evolution of where AI has been and where it's headed right now. Certainly, Clippy was kind of one of the first incarnations, I think, of what AI might look like. We've seen ChatGPT now for 2 years and 2 months. But it was back in the fall when Google introduced a new tool called Notebook LM, Notebook Language Model. When the first time I saw that, I felt like that this was something that felt really new, that it was something that I hadn't seen yet before. Google was promising it as this personalized AI research assistant. It works within their Gemini platform, and it can do some pretty cool things. You can take multiple documents. Last time I checked, you could take 50 different documents, PDFs, Google slide decks, anything that you have in Google Docs. You can take audio files. You can take images, I believe, now at this point, and you can say, I want you to look at all of these sources that I just uploaded. So maybe you're working on some type of research project, maybe you want to know more about what the commonalities are in a whole collection of documents that you might be looking at. For me, this screenshot that you see there was me working with districts in North Carolina on their gifted plans. So every 3 years in North Carolina, we have to write plans for our gifted programs. Every district has to do that. I took the 15 different districts that are in my region. I fed all of those plans in there because we wanted to see how they were identifying gifted students. It synthesized all of that for me in the matter of 60 seconds. It's pretty cool. It saved me a lot of time. I also had to go back and check it, but it was almost 100% correct. It creates an outline. I also use this as a demonstration for my students, taking assignments that they had submitted to me, using a rubric that Jim and I had created, or that Notebook had created, and then had Notebook create personalized feedback to them in the form of a friendly letter from me. But this is the part that kind of blows my mind. So you can upload, again, all of those documents, whatever it is that you want to share with it, and then you can say, what I really need you to do is to provide an audio overview in the form of a podcast for that information. So I gave a similar presentation to this that we're seeing here tonight back in November for the National Gifted Conference. In that presentation, I was talking about the craft model, which we shared here tonight. And I took that presentation, I fed it into Notebook, and this takes about 5 minutes for it to produce, so it's not good for demonstration purposes, but it produced a 15-minute audio track, and this is what the robots sound like.
Into those 5 elements: context, role, audience, format, task, and tone.
It seems like a really good way to make sure that you're giving the AI all the info it needs.
Right, and it's kind of like if you were collaborating with a human expert, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't just throw some vague question at them.
No.
You'd provide context. You know, you'd explain your goals, you'd be specific about the format you need.
Exactly. Craft brings that intentionality to how we interact with AI.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love the...
I love that. It's two robot voices talking to each other, but they don't necessarily sound like a robot. At least what I think a robot would sound like. They sound almost like two humans, and they have like some banter back and forth, and there's a lot of ums and ahs, and they make jokes, and it's kind of freaky. There's a lot, I think, that we can do with this. We can take content that your students or your kids are trying to learn, and we can have it synthesized for them. We can hear an audio version of all of the different chapters maybe that they're reading. It's exciting and also a little scary at exactly the same time. Well, we have reached the end of our time together. I want to leave you just with a couple of quick reminders. I think the two maybe most important questions that we can ask as we're looking at AI results are, is it any good? And can I trust it? Most of the times, depending on what your purpose is, it's going to be pretty good. But we do have to watch out for the hallucination, just as we have to watch out for human beings also to hallucinate. As far as that trust goes, we have to decide how far we're willing to take that. Is this going to be our only source of information? Are we going to look for additional resources? We probably should. As interesting as exciting as 2025 has already been in this first month, I constantly go back and I look at the work of John Dewey, who's working in educational research 100 years ago. And John Dewey, 100 years ago, said that the world is moving at a tremendous rate. No one knows where. We must prepare our children not for the world of the past, not for our world, but for their world, the world of the future. I believe that a bright future beckons, and the onus is on us, through hard work, honesty, and integrity, to reach for the stars. Now, the medium and the tech are constantly changing, but the key to tomorrow, I think, really comes down to being critical thinkers and to asking good questions. I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for all that you do for your kids. They really appreciate it, and I have appreciated my time here with you today. Thank you very much.
it has opened your eyes a little bit and maybe some curiosity is sparked, that you're not going to shy away but kind of dig in and help your kids because this is part of their world. And we know if we're not part of their world, we're going to be left behind. So, parents, we need to jump in and help them navigate this in a really tender way. We have some work to do, but it's really insightful. So thank you, Brian, for being here and sharing and hopefully opening some minds. Okay, kids, the part you've been waiting for. We have, yay! We have our annual set tournament. We did need to move location just a little bit because there's a basketball game going on and we didn't want that to be interfering. So Mr. Carter's standing at the door back there. If you are going to be in the set tournament, not yet, but in just a second, you're going to go with Mr. Carter. Parents, you're more than welcome to follow. We're going to go into it's the new wing that will soon be the old wing once the new wing is built. We're going to go into the new wing. It's kind of more private back there. They'll be able to, I don't know, I guess be safer for our kids too, so we don't lose them in basketball games. But right outside these doors are some goodies. So feel free to take your goodies, eat some goodies, and I promise your kids are going to be safe with Mr. Carter. So if kids want to go, this is the basket right down here that you can win tonight. So play your little hearts out, okay?
Yes.
All right, go have fun. Thank you for